Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a product manager at Latitude. Today we're going to look at the in-app help system of Workflow 5. Let's do it. When you're authoring a workflow, there's a number of ways that you can get help. The first one is going to be just through this help menu. So if I click on the help button, it's going to open up the help tab here. It's got a few just standard links to useful parts of our documentation. So what's new is basically it's our release notes. So every time we update workflow, we're going to publish to this page. And this is on a public documentation center where all of our Geocortex documents are. So workflow's in here, and we're describing any new features that have been added in this release, as well as if there are any issues that were fixed. We've got the kind of the full details down here. Also, we've got a couple sections here on key concepts and getting started. It's a great place to start for anyone new to workflow because this is going to take you through basically an end-to-end process that's going to get you up and running with a workflow. So you can build your first workflow from this. So good place to start. We also have complete documentation of all the activities and all the form elements that are supported in workflow, and that's going to describe everything there is about that activity or form element, what its inputs are, what it's actually doing. Keyboard shortcuts, so things like you can hit Control-S to save, and also some more advanced topics are in here, so a full list of all the keyboard shortcuts that we support. And then the last link in here is a link to the community. So Workflow 5 has this community where all workflow users can post questions to forums. We have product announcements in here. There's lots of good stuff in the forums, and there's tons of traffic on here. So if you have a question, do post it on the community. You can get feedback right away. So that's it for the help panel itself, but there's other help that shows up in a few other places. So anywhere where you see a question mark in the application, you can mouse over that and get some information about, in this case, when we're on the toolbox, this is information about these activities. So I can see that the container activity, it's got this information about it, and if I click the More link, it'll take me to that documentation center where it's describing the activity and all of its inputs and outputs, as well as any information about whether this activity has any requirements for working offline. In this case, this container activity has no special requirements for offline. It'll work offline. So we have that information available for every activity. And if we just take a look at an example from this workflow that I'm designing right now, I can get at the same information in the right-hand properties panel. So if I just click on an activity, I get the same sort of information in this panel. And also for any inputs, outputs, or properties, I can get information about that specific one. So the if activity has a condition input that's of type Boolean. If I click that link, in this case it's taking me to the Mozilla Developer Network that's just describing what a Boolean is. But if we were to work with an Esri specific activity that's going to take something a little more complicated, like in this case a geometry, I can see that I've got, in this case, the set scene viewpoint activity takes a geometry, and that geometry can either be a 3x or 4x Esri JavaScript API object. And if we click either of these links, it'll take us to the Esri documentation, so I can see how to go about creating one of these or see what properties are available on a geometry. The same applies to forms. So if I open up this form and select form element, the properties panel is going to provide me information about, in this case, the text box input. If I go click on more info, I'm taken to a page that's describing this text box input, all of the properties that it has available for configuration and their type information. So there's help absolutely everywhere in Workflow Designer that you can get at. So take advantage of that help system, and all of that documentation is in our public documentation center that you can just browse at your leisure, even outside of Workflow Designer. So take advantage of that.